Now, let us have a brief overview of the Indian society because it sets the context and also the backdrop for a number of topics that we are going to look at in your syllabus. This overlaps with your general studies too, especially with the chapter on Indian society, unity and diversity. I will try to elaborately discuss this topic while contextualizing it both for general studies as well as anthropology. Before going into the various aspects of the Indian society and culture, let us understand the geographical background that constitutes this part of the world. India is a vast peninsula and a subcontinent with a total land area of about 33 million square kilometers, and the population exceeds 1.2 billion. Its length from north to south is about 3,200 kilometers, and the breadth from east to west is nearly 3,000 kilometers. Now, because of its huge size, both in area and population, and also because of its geographical position, India is generally referred to as a subcontinent. Let's try and understand the story behind India's name. The earliest known name for our country is Bharatavarsha, that is the land of the king Bharata and his progeny, who was mentioned in the Puranas. Bharatakhanda is the region in which Bharatavarsha is present, comprising the modern South Asia. It is supposed to be a part of an island which is called as Jambudvipa. India owes its name to the mighty river Sindhu, the Indus, which is now in Pakistan. The huge river, which carries an annual inflow twice that of Nile and thrice combined inflow of Tigris and Euphrates, was the most imposing feature of northwestern part of Indian subcontinent. The early settlers in India were amazed at the sight of this huge river and called it Sindhu, meaning a huge sheet of water. The word Sindhu in Sanskrit also translates to an ocean. In 518 BC, the Persian Emperor Darius conquered the area around the river Sindhu and made it a satrapi or a capital of his empire. The Persians pronounced Sa as Ha, and hence Sindhu became Hindu. Later, the Greek invaders changed Hindu into Indica, which is the basis for the modern term India. And since then, the foreigners have referred to the entire subcontinent as India or the Indian subcontinent. The Muslim invaders called the country Hindustan, and the British rulers called the country India, and the same name was retained when the country became independent. And as you are aware, India's official names as per the constitution are India and Bharat. The diversity of India is unique. Being a huge country with large population, India presents endless varieties of physical features and cultural patterns. It is only in India one can find people professing all the major religions of the world, speaking in more than 1600 languages, and all the major races and geographical situations. Let's explore this manifold diversity in India first, for this is the most striking feature any visitor to India first encounters. Diversity in literary terms means differences. However, in the social context, the meaning is more specific. It means the collective differences amongst the people. That means those differences which mark off one group of people from the other. These differences may be of any sort. They could be biological, religious, linguistic, and so on. And on the basis of the biological differences, for example, we have the racial diversity. And on the basis of culture, we have linguistic and religious diversities. The point to note here, however, is that the word diversity strictly implies the collective differences amongst the people. The term diversity is the opposite of uniformity, and uniformity means a similarity of some sort that characterizes a people. When a group of people share similar characteristics, be it language or religion or anything else, it shows uniformity in that particular respect. But when we have groups of people hailing from different races, religions, and culture, they represent diversity. And thus, diversity actually means variety. India is a large country with different geopolitical conditions in different parts of the nation. And this has brought differences in social evolution of the groups living in different parts of the nation. Apart from the geopolitical diversity, interactions with foreigners due to invasions, trade, and missionary activities have also led to foreign influences and social groups from different parts of the world coming and settling down in India. While some maintain their original identity but have indigenized, others assimilated into the original culture, resulting in multitudes of subcultures within India. Diversity in India is multidimensional: racial, linguistic, geographical, religious, caste, tribe, regional differences, and many more. Let's look at diversity and then move on to the concept of unity in the Indian society and culture. First, the racial diversity. As we have already seen in paper 1, a race is a group of people with distinctive physical features like skin color, head, nose, stature, etc. Many racial classifications have been given in the context of India. We have seen them already. I'm just listing them here for your convenience. Herbert Risley had classified the people of India into 7 racial types. These are the Turco-Iranian, Indo-Aryan, Scytho-Dravidian, Aryo-Dravidian, Mongolo-Dravidian, Mongoloid, and Dravidian. And these 7 racial types can be reduced to 3 basic types: the Indo-Aryan, the Mongolian, and the Dravidian. And according to Risley, the last 2 types, that is the Mongolian and the Dravidian, would account for the racial composition of tribal India. He was the supervisor of the census operations that were held in India in 1891, and it was the data from this census which is the basis of his classification. As it was based mainly on the language types rather than the physical characteristics, Herbert Risley's classification is not a true representation of the Indian population. There were other British administrative officers and anthropologists like J. H. Hutton, D. N. Majumdar, and B. S. Guha, who have given the racial classification of the Indian people based on further researches that were held in this field. B. S. Guha, for example, has identified 6 racial types based on the 1931 census: the Negrito, the Proto-Australoid, the Mongoloid, the Mediterranean, the Western Brachycephals, and the Nordic. But since we have already looked at the various characteristics of these races, all we need to do in this particular topic here is to appreciate the complexity of India's population in terms of their biological variety. And then the linguistic diversity. India is home to a great deal of linguistic diversity. While the famous linguist Grierson noted about 179 languages and about 544 dialects in India, the 1971 census, on the other hand, reported about 1,652 languages in India, which are spoken as mother tongues. Not all these languages, however, are equally widespread. Many of them are tribal speeches, and these are spoken by less than 1% of the total population. Although Hindi is the official language of the country, the Constitution of India also recognizes 22 other languages like Assamese, Bengali, Bodo, Dogri, Maithili, Nepali, Sanskrit, Telugu, and Urdu as official languages of the country. The Census 2001 recognized 122 languages belonging to five families: the Indo European, Dravidian, Austro-Asiatic, Tibeto-Burmese, and Semito-Hamitic. Semito-Hamitic is also known as Afro-Asiatic, and we shall be looking at the linguistic classification later on. There are thousands of dialects apart from these languages. For example, Hindi, which is spoken in a number of states, has various dialects in use in various areas of the country, like Awadhi in eastern Uttar Pradesh and Brij in another area of the same state. Even the regional languages in India have a sub-regional variation. And these languages have developed and are concentrated in particular geographical areas, and they play a very important and a crucial role in framing the regional identities of the people. There have been successful movements for the creation of the states on the linguistic basis, and Andhra Pradesh was the first state to be organized on this basis, and coincidentally, the last one too in 2014, when it was reorganized into Andhra and Telangana. And we shall be looking at the role language has played in fomenting the regional sentiments amongst the people, and also the regional consciousness in India has resulted in regionalism and the demand for separate statehoods. And then we have religious diversity. Almost all the religions of the world are practiced here. And according to 2011 census, almost 80% of the people are Hindu, while 14% are Muslim, 2.3% are Christians, 2% Sikh, and Buddhists, Jains, and others constitute less than 1% in the total population. While almost all the states in India are a Hindu majority states, it's only in Jammu, Kashmir, and Lakshadweep that Muslims are a majority. Christianity is a major religion in the northeastern states, with significant populations also in Goa, Andamans, and Kerala. 75% of the total Sikh population of India lives in Punjab, but the states like Haryana, Chandigarh, and Delhi have significant numbers too. Maharashtra has the largest concentration of the Buddhists, that's about 58%. And there are sects within each religion. Hinduism, for example, has many sects, including Shaiva, Shakta, and Vaishnava, which are the oldest and the most traditional sects that Hinduism has had. Add to them the religious reform movements and other sects which are relatively recent, such as Arya Samaj, Brahmo Samaj, Ramakrishna Mission, Radha Swami sect, and the Sai Baba sect, etc. Similarly, even Islam is divided into the Shias and the Sunnis, Sikhism into Namdhari and Nirankari, Jainism into Digambaras and the Shvetambaras, Buddhism into Hinayana and Mahayana, and even Christianity has many denominations like the Protestant and Catholic, Lutheran, Methodist. We have Roman Catholic and Syrian Catholic, Episcopal, and many, many more. And thus, religious diversity is another complex layer of diversity that is added onto the Indian society as well as its culture. And then the caste diversity. Caste is the most important social concept in the Indian society, where it is divided into thousands of subcultural entities spread across the length and breadth of the country. It has not confined itself to Hinduism alone. Caste has percolated itself to other more egalitarian religions also, like Islam, Christianity, and Sikhism. Muslims, for example, are divided into classes of Ashraf and Ajlaf in India. While Ashrafs are the original Muslim foreign conquerors, the Ajlafs are the local converts. Similar to the Aryan Dravidian ethnic dichotomy amongst the Hindus, even the Muslims in India are reflecting a dichotomy that exists between the original foreign Islamic conquerors and the local converts. Ashrafs are in turn divided into Sheikh, Sayyid, Mughal, Pathan, while the Ajlafs consist of various other castes like Theli, who work in extracting the oil, Dhobi, the washerman, Darji, the tailor, etc. And these constitute the lower castes amongst the Muslims in India. Now, since a vast majority of Christians in India are converted from the Hindu fold, the converts have carried the caste system into Christianity too. Like Christians in India talk about upper caste Christians and Dalit Christians. And even amongst the Sikhs, there are Jat Sikhs and Mahajabi Sikhs, and these two occupy different social statuses in those societies. Status by birth is what the caste system is all about, and hence it's a closed system of stratification. The occupations are hereditary in nature. It is discriminatory with social and civic restrictions that are imposed upon the people through the concepts of purity and pollution. Caste system prescribes endogamy. There is a definite hierarchy, and each caste is a subcultural group. And caste system has its own regional variations in terms of the caste rankings, customs, behaviors, marriage rules, and even the caste dominance. We shall be looking at the caste system in a great detail in our discussions eventually in paper 2. And then you have the tribes in India. The tribes have been defined as a group of indigenous people with shallow history. As the history of the tribes is not documented and it is dependent on the oral traditions in the absence of a script, we call it a shallow history. The tribes have a common name, language, and territory, and they are tied by strong kinship bonds, practicing endogamy, having distinct customs, rituals, and beliefs, a simple political organization, and common ownership of resources and technology. This is by far one of the most comprehensive definitions given for the concept of the tribe. But it's very difficult to define tribes in India, you see, is because the tribes occupy various levels of economic development and technological development in different parts of the country. The tribes occupy almost all the regions of India. And there are more than 700 ethnic groups which are notified as scheduled tribes by the country. They constitute about 8.6% of the Indian population, and they speak in 105 languages and about 225 dialects, according to one particular report. There are various levels of economic development that we can witness amongst the tribes. Some of them are shifting cultivators, while others are horticulturists, agriculturists, while some others practice pastoralism, fishing, and even the collection of the minor forest produces, and so on. There is a great variation in their demography, like the numerical strength and also their racial affiliations. And some of these tribes are PVTGs, or particularly vulnerable tribal groups, who exist at a pre agricultural level of technology with dwindling populations. And we shall be looking at the tribal situation very elaborately in this chapter subsequently. And then we have regional diversity. Now, India has a huge geographical and regional diversity also. We have almost all the climatic zones of the world represented here. We have the snow clad Himalayas, the fertile plains of the north, the arid lands of the western India, the Deccan Plateau, and the coastal plains of the south. Some areas, like the plains of north, have been historically prosperous due to good agriculture, while some, like Rajasthan, do not have the same position. Some areas, like Uttar Pradesh and Punjab, were the seats of power historically and had continuous interaction with the outside world, while some, like the Himalayan states of the north and tribal areas in the northeast, were completely untouched by the outside world. So, regional diversity in India has led to the growth of many pockets of regional cultures. It led to the growth of feudalism and the birth of local kingdoms like Awadh, Bengal, Hyderabad, and many more. Regional identity was fostered because of the geographical, cultural, and the regional identities that the people had. And this strong regional identity amongst the people did not disappear after India attained its independence, and it culminated ultimately in the state's reorganization and also the federal structure of the Indian polity. A combination of regional consciousness and economic disparities within the country led to the growth of regionalism in India, a topic that we shall be looking at in detail later on. So, these are the multifold or multidimensional aspects of India's diversity.